Welcome to Real Estate Resource. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll know when new videos are available. I really hope you enjoy this one. So we've been gone for a couple weeks. Today, what I wanted to do was, as we explore the idea of counteroffers and verbiage we should use, what the forms look like, that kind of stuff. The way I wanted to approach it was have you guys look at a purchase agreement. We talk about some of the items, what you would counter, if you think it requires a counter, if you don't think it requires a counter, and then show you a little, for lack of a better term, cheat sheet that I've created for you guys that is a library of potential counters verbiage wise, and I'll share that with you as we get closer to the end so you can see what that looks like. But the first thing that I want to do when we go is talk about the forms that we're going to use for the counteroffer, right? And so for a seller, there's two. There's the seller counteroffer and the seller multiple counteroffer. And the difference between those two is the confirmation of the acceptance that is required for the seller's multiple counteroffer. So we're going to share those. I'll put those up on the screen now so that you guys can take a look at them and see them. We'll talk about them. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up an RPA that's already kind of been written, and I'm going to ask for your input. Either you could type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. But what I'd like to do is have you guys look at it and give me some suggestions on what you would counter, what the verbiage is that you would use. We'll have a conversation about it, what I would suggest. And then again, like I said, at the end, I'm going to show you the document that has that verbiage in it, and we'll go from there. So any questions before I share my screen? No? Okay. So we're going to start with the multiple counter, and I'm going to share with you now. All right. So what you guys should be seeing now is the seller's multiple counter. So here's one of the issues we run into is the idea of this numbering convention. Okay. I think a lot of agents get confused when it comes to the idea of how do I number a form. So we just assume because there has been more than one multiple counter or more than one counter that number just is sequential, right? It goes from multiple counter number 1 to number 2 to number 3. Sometimes that is true. A lot of times it is not. So it's understanding the correct way to make sure things are numbered. So for example, our first counteroffer is going to go out. It's going to be number 1, right? That's what we're going to send. Seller multiple counter number 1. And this is a counteroffer to the purchase agreement because that's where we are right now, right? I've received a purchase agreement. I am now going to counter that purchase agreement. There's an echo in the audio. That might be is everybody hearing an echo, or is it just one person? Anybody else want to give me? Okay, so it sounds like it's an issue for that one person. So maybe log out and log back in. Okay, so when I am responding to that purchase agreement, which I'm doing here, this is my first seller multiple counteroffer. And if I'm using the multiple counteroffer, I'm generally using it because I am countering more than one offer. Okay, so I have gotten 2, 3, 4 offers, multiple offers. All of those multiple offers that I send out, right? So I send 1 to Karen, 1 to Edwin, 1 to Sarah, right? They're all going to be seller multiple counteroffer number 1. Straightforward. Okay. I'm going to put the date that I'm preparing this document. I'm going to put the buyer's names and the seller's names in this section here. Okay. Now, we've added some stuff, right? So as we go through a purchase agreement and we go to counter, one of the things that may or may not be included in the purchase agreement is the liquidated damages and arbitration of disputes, which means that that buyer either did, or that means that buyer did not initial those 2 paragraphs of the purchase agreement. And we'll look at those in a little bit. They did not check those boxes, right? So if I'm going to counter that I want liquidated damages and dispute resolution, arbitration disputes to be included, I could just check this box, and now it's going to add a form called the LDAA to my transaction. And all that does is just basically, hey, you're initialing for liquidated damages and dispute resolution. Okay? So that's what that form does. Now, as I get to my multiple counteroffer, part of what it talks about is that the down payment and the loan amounts are going to be adjusted in the same proportion as the original by the dollar amount that we're increasing, right, in this, but not credits. So like if you wrote an offer for me at $1 million and I countered you back at $1.2 million, your down payment and loan amount percentages will adjust based on the new sales price. But if in that $1 million you asked me for a $15,000 closing cost credit, just because I changed to $1.2 million in the counter, it doesn't change that credit. So that has to be addressed separately. Everything else would adjust. Your down payment and your loan amount would adjust based on the new sales price. And the appraisal on the contingency gap is also doesn't change, right? So unless agreed, if in the original offer the appraisal contingency amount is calculated using an appraisal gap, then the dollar amount of the appraisal gap shall be deducted from the final purchase price to determine the appraisal contingency amount. So for example, in our offer, let's say they said we're willing to pay, right, the $50,000 over to cover up any gap. Okay. If that's the case, then when we adjust the price to 1.2, if we don't address it in this counteroffer and saying, so for, let's say this, they made their offer at 1 million. They're willing to go down to 950, but I'm raising the price to 1.2, right? Now that gap is only the $50,000, which means that if it appraises for less than the 1.2, they're only going to pay $50,000. That's how it's going to stay. So if it appraises for 900, they're going to pay 950. If they're going to pay, you know what I mean? If it appraises for 950, they're going to pay the million. If it appraises for 1.1, they're going to pay 1,150,000. That's going to stay. So if we want that amount to change because the sales price has changed, we also have to address it just like any credits. Okay. Questions? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So again, keep in mind, percentages will adjust with our new sales prices when we address them in a counteroffer. Any other specific amounts, where amount is specified, those do not change. They stay the same. So remember, as your buyer, when you get a counteroffer, if your buyer needs a certain amount of closing cost credit and now you get countered to a higher sales price, which is going to change your loan amount, which may change the amount of your down payment, then you need to go back to the lender and find out, will this amount of closing costs work for that sales price? Because if it doesn't, then I have to up my request on the credits. You guys have to do the math. You can't just be like, yeah, okay, we're good with those closing cost credits because that's what the lender said. Well, now my sales price has changed. So keep all of that in mind, okay? Now, all of the terms, and this is like just a little pet peeve thing for me, is I hate seeing in a counteroffer all of the terms to remain the same. Because that's what this is saying. It says right here in number 1, terms. The terms and conditions of the above referenced document are accepted subject to the following, which means we accept everything except for what's referenced in this document. So when I see that all other terms remain the same, you're just restating something that's already stated in your counteroffer. So if you guys are, and I get why you do it, like, hey, I want you to know we're not changing anything else, it's just this. It's okay. It's already there. You don't have to do it. And when it comes to counteroffers, I feel like you guys don't counter enough, but you put that in when it's not necessary, right? So you add things that aren't required and you don't necessarily counter things that should be. So you don't need to add all other terms remain the same because it already says that right here at the top. Okay. Now, when we're writing our counteroffer, obviously it's best if everything fits here. Okay. Now, I know that sometimes the counters get a little long. I know that sometimes they exceed the amount of space that we have here, and that's fine if you're writing that detailed of a counter and that kind of stuff happens. What I would think for housekeeping, just to make things simpler, instead of part of it being here and then the rest of it being on a text overflow addendum because we just kept typing and it went past the amount of space we had, what I suggest you guys do, just to, again, this is just an opinion and this is just for housekeeping things, is if we know that it's going to be bigger than the space, we would just say see addendum here. Okay. Just see addendum, or you could do see attached addendum. And that's it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to check this box down here and put addendum number 1. Now addendum number 1 is going to be added in. Okay. Addendum number 1 is going to be added in and we're ready to go. All the terms are on addendum number 1. Okay. Seller's going to sign addendum number 1 and it's going to be addendum number 1. And let me see if it's, sorry, I didn't mean to go that far. Let's see if it added our addendum. No, it didn't add it. So we'd have to add it. But it's going to be addendum number 1 to the seller multiple counteroffer. It's not addendum number 1 to the RPA. It's addendum number 1 to the seller multiple counteroffer. Okay. If, for example, I am countering, let's say that I have 3 offers, right? We talked about, we got an offer from Karen, we got an offer from Edwin, we got an offer from Sarah, and I'm going to counter all 3. The one I would like to accept, or maybe at first I just, on all of my multiple counters, I send. Now the terms can be different on every one of these multiple counters. And to be honest, they probably should be. So when I see sometimes these blanket counters where every multiple counter that you guys send out is exactly the same terms, it feels a little bit like I really didn't go through it. It was just some blanket terms that I always use, right? Like I'm going to put seller's choice. Well, what if they've already put seller's choice in the purchase agreement? Or I'm countering escrow period. What if the escrow period is already in that specific offer is already the right one? The other ones it isn't. So I think sometimes what happens in multiple counters is, for us as agents, is we look at them as a shortcut and not necessarily use the tool properly. So we're not countering each specific offer. We're just throwing out one blanket multiple counter, and some terms may apply to an offer and some terms may not. So when I'm negotiating with an agent on the other side that knows what they're doing, it gives me the appearance of being lazy or not paying attention to what's happening, or being very lackadaisical in the things that I do because I'm not spending the time to be specific to that one offer. So I would, as a buyer's agent, I would feel like, did they really look at the terms of my offer and did they really present the offers properly, or are they just saying, here's a blanket counter and we'll see what happens, right? Here, well, the counter is always just best and final seller reserves all services, escrow period to be this, inspection periods to be this, your appraisal to be this. It's always the same, and every offer is the same terms. Believe me, I've seen those coming from agents that want me to review stuff, and they're like, "This is the counter I'm sending." And I said, "Okay, so you're sending a multiple counter, or what do the other counters look like?" "Oh no, I'm sending the same one to everybody." Take the time, guys. Like, we want to make sure that, number one, our professionalism is a level above the basic. And also, we want to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to protect our client, to have the cleanest and best chance at closing, right? To close. It's not just about accepting an offer and opening escrow, it's about closing an escrow. And that's what we try to do with these counteroffers. What these counteroffers are doing is they're closing up little holes that were in the offer. Okay, so there's items in the offer that were missing or weren't quite right or weren't the terms that your seller's willing to go. So we need to look at each one of those and address them individually. So that's just my soapbox. I understand if you guys are doing these blanket multiple counters. That's your business decision. I just want you to make that as a business decision, not just as I'm running out of time. Okay. So we send out this first multiple counter. Here is the expiration of the multiple counter, right? It is 3 days after I send it to you. So if I send you the multiple counter today, right? Today is day 0. Tomorrow is day 1. Saturday is day 2. Sunday at 5 p.m. is day 3. If I haven't heard from you yet, I don't have to honor that signed multiple counter after that date. Okay? Please, for you as buyer's agent, if you receive a multiple counter, don't sit on it. Have your buyer get that signed and returned right away or responded to on a buyer counter as soon as possible. As soon as possible. So that at least you're still in the game. Okay? So we want to respond to whatever the counteroffer is as buyer. So then we go to the buyer's counteroffer. That's what we're going to use. Okay? Now, this buyer's counteroffer number 1 is not a counter. It is a counteroffer to the seller multiple counteroffer number 1. That's what my response is. So you got to pick something. If it is just a seller counteroffer, which means I'm the only one that's getting a counter, then it would be that counteroffer number 1. Or if it's seller multiple counteroffer, then I need to check the box and put it in. What's the date of my offer, my counteroffer? It's today. And then I'm going to put my terms in response to whatever the seller has asked me for. So if the seller, for example, in their counteroffer said highest and best offer, okay, and I want to stick with my original offer, I still have to address it here. So if my original offer was 1 million, then that's what it's going to be. It's going to be 1 million, right? We're going to put sales price to be, and that's it. Any other things that I want to change, I can change. I can add. Sorry, I forget. I like to number my counters just so that we can see the difference between them. Anything I need to address in that counter, I'm going to address here. Okay. So when I do that, I'm going to send it, and it has the same amount of time, 3rd day after. So if I got the seller's counteroffer today and I went ahead and I responded today, then the seller would have until Sunday to respond to me. Okay. If the seller accepts what our terms are, the seller will just sign here and send it back. If it is past that 3rd day, then I as buyer have to sign it again because we're ratifying the acceptance on it being late. Okay. So seller gets this and they say, we don't like what you've countered back. So we're going to put, yes, we accept, subject to the attached seller counteroffer or multiple counter number 2, because that's what it would be. Now, if they're not going to negotiate with the rest of the other multiples. Let's say nobody else came back. Let's say everybody else just ignored the multiple counter. And these people answered. But I still want to negotiate some terms. I don't have to use a multiple again. I can now use seller counteroffer number 1 as a response to the buyer counter. Okay? So again, like I said, the numbering convention, how we look at how these counter offers are numbered and used. I could have a seller multiple counter offer number 1, also have a seller counter offer number 1, and I could have 2 buyer counter number 1s. And I know that that's going to be confusing for people. So I go back to forms, right? Seller's going to now respond on a regular seller counter offer. This is going to be seller counter number 1. And it is going to be a counter to buyer counter number 1. And this one is going to be drafted today because we're doing everything quickly. And so I'm going to write my terms and everything that they are. And this is still going to be addendum number 1 because this is addendum number 1 to the counter offer. The first addendum number 1 was addendum number 1 to the multiple counter offer. I know you guys are getting confused by that when I talk about the numbers, but that's how they work. So now we have 2 addendum number 1s, but they're to 2 different forms. We have a seller multiple counter number 1, we have a buyer counter offer number 1, and now we're going to have a seller counter offer number 1. And that's how we're going to work these numbers. Alba, you have a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you. So for where it says seller multiple counter offer date. Here, yeah. Where it
on
says,
this one. So it'll be so we're countering right now. So my buyer counter was also written today. We're doing this quickly, right? We're going back and forth. So even though this one's written today, I'm responding to one that was written today and I received today. Okay. So that's the date. If that buyer counter offer that we got was, let's say, from Tuesday, right? Then it would be that.
Oh, got it. Okay. So it's not the purchase agreement. No. It goes based on the SMCO.
If it were for so when we go back, let's go back to that multiple counter, which was our original counter offer, right? Our original counter offer was the purchase agreement. Let's say we received that purchase agreement on last Friday.
Yeah.
That would be the date there.
Okay. But if it's an SMCO or a PCO.
As you go on to each document, if you're responding to different documents, this date is going to change.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm responding to a very specific document. Okay. So right now I'm responding to a buyer counteroffer that also happened to be today. We're doing this quickly, right?
Okay.
So now I have seller counteroffer number 1. So now I have seller counteroffer number 1. Thank you for your question, Alba. I'm glad that you brought that up. So I have now seller counteroffer number 1. This is a new thing. I'm going to respond to the buyer's counteroffer number 1. Okay. So I have my addendum number 1. I have everything. I sign it. I send it over. The buyer still has some reservations about that. And so now I'm going to do a new counteroffer, right? So I'm going to add a counteroffer because I want my transaction to keep going. So I can add more than 1 counter. So I'm going to now add buyer counter number 2, but it's not going to be numbered that way. So I open buyer counter number 2, and this is now to seller counteroffer number 1. This is going to be buyer counteroffer number 1, and it's going to be dated today, and it's going to be based on the seller counteroffer that's also dated today, and therefore so forth. Right? We're just going to keep going in that direction. It's the direction we're going to go until we get to the point where everybody agrees. Now that there's been buyer counteroffers and a subsequent seller counter, that first multiple counter that we did, right? Because one of the differences between a multiple counter and a seller counter is that the seller has to sign it after, right? We send it, the buyer has accepted it, they checked off their box, they got their buyer counter number 1, right? That's normally, if they didn't do the buyer counter, if there was no counter attached, the seller would sign this saying, we've accepted it. Okay? We've accepted your offer. Bertha, you had a question. Go ahead. Bertha, you can unmute.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm driving, Kyle.
That's
so
okay.
In regards to the when I'm responding to a seller multiple counter offer 1 or 2, whatever. So you're referring to the date that they created the document, not that they signed, right?
Yes, the date they created it. Yes.
Okay. And also, can you articulate a little bit more when you said that the buyer's counter has expired and you said something that you need to sign it again? I didn't get it. You need to create another one?
No.
Or what?
Yeah. No. Great question. No. Okay, so the buyer counter offer, just like every other, like the offer, the seller counter, the seller multiple counter, they all expire 3 days after they're sent, right? So it says right here, expiration. The buyer counter offer shall be deemed revoked and the deposits fee shall be returned unless by 5 p.m. on the 3rd day after the date this buyer counter offer is signed, right? If it's not returned by that date, it's deemed revoked. It's not any good. But let's say that on day 5, the seller signs and accepts it right here, right? So we're 2 days late. If that's the case and we get it back and the buyer's still okay with moving forward, then the buyer would sign here stating that, yes, we got it later than the expiration date, but we're honoring it. Okay, is that fair? Does that make sense? I'm hoping so. Just give me a thumbs up if it is, Bertha, if that cleared it up for you. Anita gave me a thumbs up, and so did Bertha. Great. Okay, everybody's good. And Catalina has a suggestion. I want to know what Catalina's suggestion is. Let's see. Where's Catalina? I'm going to unmute her. I'm going to make her tell us this suggestion that she has.
Hi, Kyle. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Okay. So a suggestion I do have, just because I came across it a couple of months ago on a counter, is I think that all agents should be aware that on the RPA letter K, it says assignment request. It says 17 days or 0 days after acceptance. I think that's something that all agents should go ahead and be very aware that they can actually counter that or put 0 days, because I had one agent, I'm not going to mention what it was in this office, try to be sneaky and try to do an assignment because her buyer was not very well qualified.
Okay. Well, I mean, first off, that's something that it is addressed in the counters that we're going to discuss when we're done looking at the forms. Okay. And we look at the purchase agreement. That is something that I've already addressed in what verbiage you guys should be using as far as assignments go. And second, not to try, because I don't know who you're talking about, but not to defend anybody. I just always try to go, it's not malicious to begin with. It's just not trying to lose a deal, but I got you, how it would make you feel. So yes, thank you for the suggestion. And we will actually discuss that when we get into the counters in just a minute here.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So let's see. So let me see what else is, come on. We're not going to do, who is it in the chat? So 3 days to expire. And if we get it back, it's still valid. It's still valid. BT sign there by sign. Well, look, it could still be valid even if the buyer doesn't sign that. The idea is that if everybody signs it, even if the buyer doesn't sign that late acceptance and escrow gets it and everybody's fine with it, it's still accepted. It's just we're trying to do things the absolute right way. Okay. So one other thing that I want to show you in the multiple counteroffer real quick, and just so that we're aware of it. So let's say that we send all the multiple counters out, right? I get more than one back, and I'd like to keep one as a backup offer. It gives me an option in this selection paragraph of paragraph 8 where I can choose to accept your offer as a backup offer and include a backup offer addendum with the terms like, okay, you agreed to the terms I say in the counter. Great. Now here's the backup offer addendum and what that means for you. And we'll talk about the backup offer addendum at another time, but they added this. I like that it's there. The buyer can sign and accept this and send back the backup offer accepted. And now I have an accepted backup offer. And the benefit of having an accepted backup offer like that is if this first offer falls through, then I can just call this person that accepted it this way and say, let's say it's Catalina. Hey, Catalina, you were backup number 1. My deal just fell out. Do you want to open escrow? And we open escrow tomorrow. The terms are already accepted. I don't have to get a new offer. I don't have to renegotiate anything. I don't have to send another counter. I don't have to do anything. We've already agreed to all the terms. She says yes. I just go into escrow with the terms that we agreed upon, a week, 10 days ago, whatever it was. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the purchase agreement. Do you guys have any questions about these forms or what we've put together, or like how we're going to use them or how the numbering works? Anybody have any questions before I move on to the RPA and we look at it and talk about specific counteroffers? No? Okay. All right. So here we go. We're going to switch over to the RPA. You guys should be looking at that right now. So what I'd like to do is let's take this section by section. Okay. So let's start with paragraph 1. Anybody want to volunteer and let me know something in there that should be countered? And as a matter of fact, we may have already discussed one of them. Anybody, you could raise your hand. You could type it in the chat. I'll give you credit, however you want to do it. So I want to give you guys the opportunity to tell me what item you would counter and how you would counter it. So I would prefer that you unmute, but you don't have to. Okay, so we got 2 things in the chat. The first one in the chat was the APN. Good pickup that it's blank. Here's the thing I will tell you. The APN is really not 100% necessary when it comes to specific street addresses, only because the street addresses, Eric, I see you, but we're starting with paragraph 1. We're going to go paragraph by paragraph. So you guys are jumping up a little bit, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. Let's try to keep it to paragraph 1 because I'm going to lose some of these if we start going too far down. Okay. So the APN, if I have a specific street address and there's not more than one APN that's assigned to that street address, I'm okay with not having to counter the APN. But if it is something that has multiple APNs, or the street address is not necessarily correct, maybe like on a vacant lot or something like that, then yeah, absolutely, I got to get the APN. But good catch, Sada E. Anita, assignee. Okay, so Anita said assignee. So Anita, what would you counter on that line? I'm going to unmute you. What would you counter on that assignee line?
Yeah, that I don't know. I would ask you. But okay. It just doesn't look right to me. I don't think
that's fine. I like the honesty. It's like, I don't know what I don't like it. I don't know what I would say, but I know who to go to. All right, yes. Perfect. All right, so I'll let you off the hook for that one. Okay, so anything else in paragraph 1 that you guys see? We're sticking to paragraph 1. I'll get to you guys that are in paragraph 2 in a minute. Anything in paragraph 1? Let's see. Okay, so I see buyer. Alba, I'm assuming that you're referring to the assignee also. Okay, so we're looking at, there you go. Catalina picked it. Zip code is incorrect. All right. So I'm trying to stick to paragraph 1 here. So Catalina got zip code is incorrect. So Catalina, for example, if you saw this, if you got this offer, and we're focusing on paragraph 1 right now, I just asked you to unmute. What would you counter on that?
I would put zip code to be corrected to 90660.
Yes. Now, I probably would take it a step further and just clarify the entire address, just so there's no confusion, but you could do it that way too. So my counter would probably look something like buyer to be aware address, the correct address of the property is 9155 Telegraph Road, Pico Rivera, California, 90660. I would probably do that extra. I know it's a little extra, but I might do that just to make sure that there is no, confusion. But yes, good catch. Okay. So the assignee one. So there's 2 things in paragraph 1, right? There's 2 things in paragraph 1. One, Catalina caught, which was the paragraph. Number 2 was the and or assignee. So let's talk about and or assignee and what that means. If I accept the offer like this, right? I'm the seller and I get the offer and I accept it like this. I know that the contract, and when we were talking about it earlier, the contract says you have 17 days to request an assignment, and Catalina was saying maybe we should counter it to 0, but we're gonna address that differently. And we're gonna address it here. I'm not gonna wait till I get down to paragraph 17. Now, if this wasn't written this way, if it was just John Smith and I wanted to address the assignee, I address everything paragraph by paragraph. So when you guys see the counter library that I've created, it's in order of paragraph to give you guys an idea of what the verbiage should look like. And you know what? As a matter of fact, I'm just going to show it to you right now so you guys can get a look at it and have an idea of what it is. I will share it with you, but you need to send me an email for those of you guys that work here in the office. Anybody else that's not in the office and they're watching this on YouTube, it will be in my subscription library that you guys can take a look at. So this is the counter library. And if you look at it, the way it works is here's paragraph 1B, property address, right? When to use it. So buyers aware the address on the RPA is incorrect. Correct address is buyer verified any consistency to close escrow. Buyers aware the address reference for blank was created for an unpermitted unit. We could have that too if there's a problem with that. Or like we talked about, if we need to address the APN, it's going to be here in the APN. Okay. And the language for the assignee is later on in that library, but that's what that is. And I will share that with you guys so you have that language. And since it's in the order of the paragraphs, then what you would do is you just kind of follow along the paragraphs. And hey, do I need to counter? Oh, can I use this verbiage? Can I, I think I just wanted to give it to you guys as a little bit of help. So what we're going to say for the assignees is going to be something along the line of, either I'm going to allow the assignments, but I don't want it to be all the way to day 17. So I'm going to say seller agrees to buyer must name any and all assignees within 7 days of acceptance, right? So I'm cutting their time down if I'm willing for the assignment. If I'm not willing for any assignment, instead of saying buyer has 0 days to request an assignment because I don't have to accept assignments. That's the thing is there's no requirement unless I accept it like this where it says and or assignee. So if it says this, I'm going to basically respond is seller will not entertain any assignment requests, right? That's it. If I don't want you to be able to sign, I don't want to be part of a wholesaler, I will not accept any assignments. That's it, period. End of story. I'm telling you from the beginning. Now, you may try to request one, but I've already told you I'm not going to accept it. So it means that it becomes legitimate for me to refuse your request. So when it comes to assignment requests, unless there is a legitimate reason for me to deny the assignment request, I have to accept it. Okay? So if I do counter though and say I will not accept any assignments, then now that condition of it being reasonable is taken off. I've already told you I'm not accepting them. So you can request all you want. I'm rejecting them. So you need to know that from the beginning. So I would suggest that if your concern is that you're trying to eliminate those assignments for wholesalers that in your properties, your counteroffer should be seller will not accept any assignment requests, period. That's it. Is a trust different than an assignment? Yeah, well, no. Okay, so for an example, I buy the property. I write the offer. It says, instead of from John Smith, it says from Kyle Estrada. And then halfway through, or 10 days in, I decide, you know what, we do have a trust. I'd rather put it in the trust, or we created a trust, so now I want to put it in the trust. I would still have to request an assignment, but the reason I'm requesting the assignment is to put it into my wholly owned entity. Those are different things, right? So I may have a corporation that I'm the only officer of, right? There's nobody else in the corporation. it's my wholly owned entity. Those assignment requests are a little bit different than I'm assigning it to a whole new person. The other thing that you have to think about too is on assignments is it's also using an assignment when I have to add, remove, right, change a buyer, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. So can you buy under? Yes, you can absolutely buy under your trust. Absolutely, 100%. Okay. All right. So paragraph 1, we're done. We want to address that assignment, right? Request, and we address the address. So we're good. You guys pick those up. All right. So paragraph 2, people are already jumping in. Paragraph 2, I saw Eric had it. I think Zuli had it. Anita had one that's in there also. So Zuli, I think, well, actually, Eric was first. Let's see. Eric was first with license number. Well, let's see. I don't know who OSCHEZ is, so I'm going to unmute you.
Oscar.
Oh, okay, Oscar.
I have a question. If requesting an assignment is going to help sell the property, why wouldn't you accept an assignment?
Well, I think that there's a couple things that you would look at is you are not necessarily going to, it doesn't encourage or doesn't increase your odds of closing when somebody's trying to wholesale your property. And that's what we're talking about in the assignments. We're not talking about a legitimate assignment where it goes from me as a person, as my personal property to me as transferring this into my corporation or my trust. We're not talking about adding or removing a buyer. We're not talking about replacing a buyer. We're not talking about that. Those are legitimate requests. But when I buy it, and a lot of times it's the agent is the original purchaser and or a corporation is the purchaser, and then that assignment request comes in and it's a whole different entity altogether. It's a whole different entity altogether, right? It's like I think it just what happens is I think that sometimes sellers just have the feelings like I sold to you. Now why am I in escrow with this person, right? And I'm gonna say one of the other things that I also, and I'm not saying that anybody here would do that or anybody that's watching these videos would do it, but there is sometimes money changing hands in those assignments, and that's not disclosed to the seller, and that makes an assignment illegal. And I think just to avoid that, sometimes listing agents and sellers think, hey, if anybody's going to make money off the property, it's going to be me, right? The seller, who they should, right? It's not fair.
Right.
If I accept an offer at $500,000 because I think that's a fair offer, but then you make another 10 because you assigned it to somebody else, why shouldn't the seller be getting that money? If that's the case and you're not disclosing to me that that's happening, that would be the reason why I would avoid it, because I've been involved with a lot of assignments where I see that they do these assignments with people and they're not disclosing to the seller that there was money changing hands. And that's a problem. That's problematic. So that would be why I might avoid assignments altogether. So I hope that's just my opinion. Everybody else can feel completely different, but that's me.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So Eric, since you were first, if you're still here, there you go, Eric. What would you counter on paragraph 2B since you were the one who brought it up first? Are you there, Eric? Okay. All right. Anybody else want to volunteer? Raise your hand. You want to volunteer and tell me what should be countered in paragraph 2? All right. So David's got part of it right under paragraph 2B in the confirmation of agency. It doesn't establish exactly who we're representing under Century 21 All-Stars. The seller box needs to be checked. Same for buyers. That's correct. But we're also missing something else in paragraph 2B. And what is it that we're missing? It's already been mentioned a couple times in here. The license number. Okay, so we've all identified the things that are missing. How should we counter it? What should the counter sound like? What should it state? How should it read? Anybody want to volunteer to tell us what they would counter? What would you write in your counter if you received this offer? Or who wants to be honest and say, I wouldn't even counter it, I wouldn't have caught it? Anybody want to give a suggestion? Okay, Bertha, go for it.
I think I will just say buyer to correct item 2B on RPA. I will just identify the number and section to be filled out.
Okay, which is fair. But what we're doing now, what we're doing now in that, and I'm going to go ahead and mute you. What we're doing now in that case is now we're again relying on them that they didn't do it right in the first place to do it right and then return it, right? Because now it still has to be in writing somewhere. Right, and Anita put that buyer to complete section 2B on RPA, representation of broker number. That's fine, but now we're waiting on them to refill out page 1 and send it to us again. David, kind of the same thing. So what I would suggest, and that's what's going to be in that library, the counter library that I would share with you guys, is I'm just going to put buyer and seller are aware, confirmation of agency, Century 21 All-Stars, license number 01280965 is the broker for the seller. And Kyle Estrada, license number 01457706 is the agent for the buyer or for the seller. Buyer to be represented by ABC Realty and John Doe. That's it. I'm going to state it. I'm going to state it in my counteroffer. I could take it a step further if I want to and say, confirmation of agency form attached to this counteroffer, please sign and return. Because there's a confirmation of agency form I could do. But I don't need to do that if I confirm the agency in our counteroffer. I think Sylvia has one of my older counter forms. She put the counter in there. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to address it directly. And I'm going to say, I'm going to clarify. Because the thing is that when it comes to this, we have to assume that if an agent is making mistakes like this, then they're not going to do it right the second or third time I ask them to. I have an example from when I was selling. I received an offer on one of my listings and it was written poorly. And I took the time, instead of doing a counteroffer, because I thought this counteroffer is going to be insane, I wrote a note basically like, hey, here, agent, is everything you need to fix. This is everything that needs to be corrected on your offer. Please correct it. I told them what to write. Please fix it and resubmit the offer so I have something that I can present, because it's going to be hard to present the way it's written and it's going to be hard to counter. The second offer I got, 30% of what I asked them to fill in was done. And I'd given them what to do. So I called the agent. I said, hey, listen, I appreciate you resubmitted. There's still a lot that's missing. If you could just go back through that list I sent you, fill that out, that it's going to make it a lot easier for me to present and be able to counter you on it. And they said, just present it the way it is. Needless to say, they didn't get their offer accepted, but that's why I say when it comes to these counter offers, I'd prefer I'm just going to state what's going to happen, because I can't count on the other person to do things the right way. I hope that makes sense. And yeah, I get it. Agents they don't use the forms. They don't do things right. They just go, hey, resend me this, resend me that. I totally understand. Sometimes it is faster to just say, hey, just send me the offer this way. And that's okay too. But if I'm getting the offer, I still have to present them. And if there's a chance that this is an offer that's viable for my seller and I to move forward, then we're going to continue. We're going to counter it, because we're going to clarify the terms and we're going to make things work. That's what my job is as listing agent. Okay. So I know it's a little early, but we're obviously not going to finish. Some agents don't read. I think a lot of them don't. I think we're going to finish a little early, only because there's no way we're getting through the rest of the purchase agreement in the 8 minutes. So we're going to do a part 2 next week, and we're going to look through it. We're going to talk about these counters. We're going to, maybe we'll type up how the counters look and all that stuff. But we're going to follow this up next week. Just because I don't want to get started in paragraph 3, because that's where we're going to spend a lot of time. So we did paragraph 1 and 2. We'll get into paragraph 3 and those counters that exist in there, and how you guys would approach it. Maybe you wouldn't, maybe you would, and my advice to you as far as those things go. Does anybody have any questions before I let you guys go? Anybody? No questions? I got an applause over there from JD. Thank you. Okay, so again, we will continue this next Thursday. This video will be on YouTube later if you missed any part of it or you want to revisit any of the subjects that we talked about previously. If you would like a copy of that counter library, very specific instructions, send me an email, not a text message, not a phone call. Send me an email and I will respond with a copy of that counter library. If unfortunately you don't work here at Century 21 All Stars, if you are just watching this on YouTube, I'm not going to be able to share it with you unless you're one of my members of the channel. So those of you who have access to my content library as members, you'll have a copy of it. Otherwise, please guys, go watch my videos, like, subscribe, share them with other agents that maybe aren't watching or you think should watch. I appreciate it. It really helps me out on that end. And other than that, thank you guys for being here. Sorry I've been gone for so long, and we'll see you next Thursday. Go out there and be productive, everybody. Take care.